فقهني في الدين أو نافع وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا. Oh Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge, acceptable deeds, and pure provision. And then our second to last one is Allahumma fa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna ilma. This dua was already repeated in the previous slide, but since it is such a great dua, we would put it again in the compilation. So it means, oh Allah, benefit us through what you teach us and teach us what is beneficial for us and increase us in knowledge. And our last dua that we have is Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'u wa min qalbin la yakhsha'u wa min nafsin la tashba'u wa min da'watin la yastajabu laha. And that means, oh Allah, I seek your protection from knowledge that is not beneficial, and from a heart that does not fear, and from a soul that is not satisfied, and from a prayer that is not answered. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed reading The Alchemist, and whether it was a little out of your comfort zone or was just the perfect book to read for you. There are many lessons and themes in this book that can be directly related to our own personal lives, and the lessons, and even from this non-Islamic novel, has direct ties to Islam that you may have noticed or paid attention to. And inshallah, that is what we will be discussing. I hope you have compiled some thoughts and ideas to contribute to the group, as I will ask everyone to share a few things about the book throughout today's meeting. Be sure to gather your thoughts, open your books, and have ready some favorite quotes and ideas to share with the rest of the book club today. So inshallah, before we actually get started, we actually have two guest speakers joining us today. Our first is Sister Ida Ahsan from Chicago, talking about reading more every day. She is a junior at Glenbard West High School and lives in Chicago, Illinois. Sister Ira will now talk about why reading needs to be and should be one of the most essential things in your day-to-day life. I'll turn the mic over to her now.
Assalamu alaikum. Can everyone hear me? My name is Ira, and I will be talking about why reading should be an essential part of your life and how you can start just by reading a little bit every day. Did you know that more than a quarter, about 26% of American adults, admit to not having read even part of a book within the past year? This is according to statistics coming out of the Pew Research Center in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, for that 26%, there is science that supports the idea that reading is good for you on several levels. If you're not the biggest fan of books, that's okay, you're not alone. But before you shut down books and reading altogether, take the time to learn about the importance of reading and all the incredible benefits that come with it. 1. Reading fiction can help you be more open-minded and creative. According to research conducted at the University of Toronto, study participants who read short story fiction experienced far less need for cognitive closure, which is the need to make conclusions even if they're irrational, compared with other participants who read nonfiction essays. Essentially, they tested as more open-minded compared with the rest of the readers of the essays. Although nonfiction reading allows students to learn the subject matter, it may not always help them in thinking about it, the authors write. A physician might have academic knowledge of his or her subject, but this may not prevent the physician from seizing and freezing on a diagnosis when additional symptoms point to different views. Challenge yourself by stepping out of your comfort zone, and you may even surprise yourself with a newfound passion. You'll be amazed to see the places reading can take you. 2. People who read books live longer. According to Yale researchers who studied 3,635 people older than 50, found that those who read books for 30 minutes daily lived an average of 23 months longer than non-readers or magazine readers. The practice of reading books creates cognitive engagement that improves lots of things, including vocabulary, thinking skills, and concentration. It can also affect empathy, social perception, and emotional intelligence, the sum of which can help people stay on the planet a bit longer. 3. Reading 50 books a year is something that you can actually accomplish. While a book a week might sound really daunting, it can be done by even the busiest people. You might put aside reading as simply not having enough time, but it actually takes less effort than you realize once you start. Writer Stephanie Huston says that her thinking that she didn't have enough time turned out to be a lame excuse. Now she made a goal to read 50 books a year and says that she has traded wasting time on her phone for flipping pages in bed, on train, during meal breaks, and while waiting in line. 2 months into her challenge, she says that she had more peace, satisfaction, and improved sleep, while learning a lot more than she thought possible. 4. Successful people are readers. It's because high achievers are keen on self-improvement. Hundreds of successful executives have shared that books help them where they are today. Self-improvement is a factor that leads to success, and reading improves many aspects of yourself that you do not realize. For example, what is the key to great communication and writing skills? Reading. It has been proven that children who read better perform better in school and have a more active imagination, leading to a larger world and more possibilities for success. Also, a growing body of research indicates that reading can literally change your mind. Using MRI scans, researchers have confirmed that reading involves a complex network of circuits and signals in the brain. It heightens brain connectivity, and it also rewires the brain, creating new white matter. According to researchers at Carnegie Mellon University, reading exercises, at least in children, according to the study, can alter brain tissues in many positive ways. Overall, it's safe to say that reading can change your life for the better, and the importance of reading is undeniable. There are so many more benefits of reading that are not included in this and are backed up by science. And even Islam is a religion centered around reading. If you think that you hate reading or you may dislike it, then perhaps you just haven't found your own genre that fits your personal style. But you should keep trying and keep searching for what's right for you. A book is one of the most powerful things in the world, offering you new opportunities to learn, grow, and be inspired. Thank you.
Jazakallah, Sister Ira. That was an excellent reminder to read more every day. Reading is one of the best ways to increase our knowledge and is very important for us as Muslims. So Jazakallah for your input. And now we have our next guest speaker, Sister Atika. Sister Atika, mashallah, is currently a fourth grade teacher at Ilm Academy. She has long been in the field of education with a bachelor's and master's degrees, and she has a special interest in working with struggling students during after-school sessions. She is a mother of two and is from Alpharetta, Georgia, and is here to talk about the first ayah of Surah Alaq, which includes the word Iqra, or read. Sister Atika, the mic is now yours.
Jazakallah khair. Zaid, I hope you can hear me. I just need a confirmation.
Yes, I can hear.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. This is just being honest. I haven't attended many of these sessions, mashallah, and I've never been a speaker per se. But I'm going to try my role as a fourth grade teacher to pretend that this is a class, because I'm terribly nervous at this point while talking. But inshallah, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. As the topic about reading is mentioned, and as I go back and recollect all the years that I've been teaching, I have seen practical implications of people who have read, and I have seen results of people who have not been really avid readers throughout these entire 20, 30 years that I've been a teacher. Going back to the Prophet ﷺ, his speech, and how, subhanAllah, going back to the incident of him being in the cave, and he could not understand the commandment that came to him 1,450 years ago. When he suddenly noticed Jibreel alayhi salam approach him, and he was squeezed and requested multiple times to read. The first commandment that came to Muslims being as read in the name of Allah who created you. This commandment itself is something that I actually use in my classroom to remind my students of what the first commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been for us as Muslims. We've known this story for many, many years now, and some of us probably know even lots of details about it. But then it is interesting to note that how practical of a religion is Islam, and how practical of an advice is this. The first thing that a person learns to do in his life, the first commandment is to read. So subhanAllah, with this background, I just wanted to take you through a few incidences in my life where I used to teach a very poor location back in India. This was in 1996, 97. And there were children there who were from very poor backgrounds, and I would teach them. And a majority of the students that were there used to be, I'm not sure if you guys know what a rickshaw is, but they used to be rickshaw drivers, and they were not very successful people. All their lives aim was to become, if they would become a rickshaw driver, that would be a great achievement for them. But eventually they would become the most honorable amongst them would become a taxi driver at the most. So that was the kind of background I used to teach, and students were not really concerned about their studies and whatnot. But there was this one child who was constantly attached to books, and he would borrow, beg, ask for books from anywhere in a possible place that he could get from. And this child would always question me a lot of things about science, and he was really interested. And he would tell me, Sister Atika, I will, and that's how they addressed it at that school. Sister Atika, I will never become a rickshaw. I will never become a taxi driver. I will become something, and I will, inshallah, show you my life. And that was an Islamic school too, back in Bombay, India. So then after many years, I find this, I go to a relative's house, and they invite me because one of my nieces has a proposal coming in, and and this guy walks in, and he comes into the room, and we're welcoming these side of people coming in to marry my niece, and trying to see who this, the first meeting. And then they say, and then this guy, this unusual voice calls on and says, Sister Atika, is this you? And I'm like, oh my God, I could recognize that sound. And it was this child who had now become a chemical engineer. So this was something that really touched my heart, a story that I could never forget. Is this one child who loved to read amongst all the others, 15, 16 odd boys that used to be a part of my classroom at that point. And then they were all into these, endless wasting time habits. And this was the only child who would be a constant reader, subhanAllah. And he came back to me and was so proud to tell me, Sister Adhika, I did not become a rickshaw driver. I'm not saying that there's no respect for, labor. Any kind of labor is definitely most respected. But this child rose above his level, and he came out and he proved himself. So subhanAllah, the way reading impacts you as a person, the way reading takes you from one level to another, subhanAllah. And he has become a huge success, alhamdulillah. May Allah grant him more success in his life and the akhirah, inshallah bil alameen. But this was one thing that really stood out. There are many students that I've come across, and a lot of them, mashallah, have done successfully well. But this one stands out really tall amongst all the other stories that I have to tell. So basically, what Islam teaches is, going back to again the ayah of Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Again, going back to the same ayah, it tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly this time set out the rules for us as to what needs to be done as we grow as human beings, rules to live by. The number one thing that you need to do, start reading. Have your iman straightened out. Make sure that you read. This leads to a bunch of things that I looked up, and of course things that I've experienced in my life too. Mental stimulation makes you become smarter. Stress reduction calms you down, increases your knowledge. You have something to talk about. This reminds me of a student of mine who was an extremely, he had the gift of the gab, and that's what it's called. And he would talk, mashallah, a lot. He had a great communication gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the only thing that this child was not able to do was not able to make sense of what he was saying. He would bring in different examples, and he would bring in an argument, in a debate, he would bring in different points of view. But the only thing that he lacked was a lot of knowledge. There was huge knowledge gaps in what he presented and what he presented, and how he placed his claim to certain things, and how he debated when he did. So one of the things that I would always remind him is that make sure that you increase your knowledge base, and that you can do only by reading. Then you have vocabulary expansion. You want to make sure that the kind of words that you use leave a lasting impact on the person that you're talking to, or the person that you're trying to pass your knowledge on to. Make sure that you have reading definitely improves your memory. it strengthens your analytical skills. It improves your concentration and focus. It leads to better writing skills, which is something that is of a rarity in these days. It brings you tranquility of the heart. It has a bunch of benefits that and these are the reasons why a person should be able to invest more in reading. Make sure that you spend more time on it. um, I have a list of books that I had put together, and I had for kids, because since I'm an elementary teacher, I do have a whole list of a link that leads to halal books that were chosen by let me just quickly look at it, that were chosen by a Farida Shama, and she is basically a very well-known educator from Chicago, and she was the one who put this book together. I will share this link with you later on, inshallah, with Zayd, then he can pass it on to your group. But this is a whole list of about 450 to 550 books that are all halalified Islamic books. Sometimes you pick up a book and it does not seem appropriate. Sometimes me as a teacher, I get shocked as to certain things that have been certain books that have been inundated with certain material that you would not want to come across. So this lady, Farida Shama, this educator, she went ahead and she looked at about 500 to 550 books, and she sorted them, and she sorted them by elementary and middle school level grades, and then she made sure that these are all have halal content, nothing that shocks you or makes your parent worry about or your teachers worried about what you're reading. So I will inshallah share that link with you. But basically, since we're talking about leadership, and this group, mashallah, barakallahu fikum, has the potential and has a collection of, mashallah, to be leaders in the future, there are a bunch of books separate books that I have a list of, inshallah, and I will pass this book on to Zayd as well for you guys to be able to look at later, inshallah. For those who are from the elementary level, just a few points for you to just know, 7 points for you guys to know how to be able to understand what you're reading and reading comprehension strategies. First thing that you would like to do is making connections. For example, if I would like to talk to you about a book about animals, or I would like to introduce a topic about animals, I will make a connection with, I would bring in a hook or a story about my own cat, and I will tell you how my dear cat used to be and how beautiful it was and how it entertained me. And that will be something that you will create a memory hook in your mind, and be able to remind it as to what making connections does to you. So when you read a book, you want to read your book with a good book. First of all, your selection has to be really good. Second of all, when you open that book, you want to make sure that you have the intention of making connections with it, or with what's going on in the book with your own life. The second thing that you would want to do is you want to visualize what's going on in the book. You want to make mind pictures. You might take a pen and a paper on the side and try to draw pictures of what's going on in the book, so that you'll be able to develop your comprehension. Number 3, you could make inferences as to what's going on, and then you might want to be a character in that book and try to see what kind of decision making you would be able to make while you're being the character. And you would try to make assumptions of what happens next in that story, making predictions of what happens. That's also a good strategy to be able to understand a book better. The fourth point would be to determine the important parts of a story. Try to determine the beginning, middle, and end of a story. I might be sounding just like a typical school teacher, but that's what I am. So basically, you summarize and you say BME makes a summary. That's a little jingle that I use for my class. BME makes a summary. So you'd want to summarize small parts of the book and then try to put them together. As you move on into different parts of the book, the beginning, middle, and end, you want to determine what level, what part you're at, and how the story evolves. The fifth point would be how to synthesize everything together. You need to knit everything together. This is one of the most difficult aspects of reading a book, is to be able to synthesize everything together, to be able to get the entire story, to say the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and then try to explain to yourself what would be your perspective at the end of this book, and what would be your thoughts and opinions if you were to write a sequel to this book, or you were to write to think about what would happen next. What would it be? So basically, some of the points that that are mentioned here. And of course, you would want to focus on, subhanallah, most of you, mashallah, I know that some of you are hufad here. There's no need to tell you how it takes determination to be able to read somewhere. but and I'm so very proud of you, Zaid, and you, Zain. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Really proud moments in my life that you guys have memorized the Quran, and I just don't stop bragging about it sometimes to people. But subhanallah, determination, number one, to be able to make the niyyah and to be able to have a strong determination to be able to do something. And remember, when you don't want to do something, it's a very slippery slope. You just go down the easy path and not be able to do it. But then as you grow older and you try to build a career based off your knowledge that you have gained, of the mental preparations that you have made as a child, as a student, that will go on and make you a stronger leader as you move ahead. And if you have not prepared well, if your foundation is not strong enough, you are not going to be able to build upon that. But inshallah biiznillah, I'm sure inshallah biiznillah, we'll be able to take what is the best from mashallah, such incredible teachers that you have, Sister Javeria, Sister Tazeen, all these incredible parents that you have around you, inshallah. And hoping and praying, inshallah, biiznillah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides you all to the right path and the straight path, and make you great readers and benefit you with the knowledge that is right. Biiznillah ta'ala. So, jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah, Sister Atika, for that insightful speech about the very first ayah ever revealed. It is quite amazing that the first ever ayah revealed told us to read. So now, since we have discussed reading for a bit of time, I think it's time to discuss the actual book at hand, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. So I just wanted to hear from a couple of you guys about if you liked the book and why, or if you didn't like it and why. You can just type in the chat a couple of good things you enjoyed about the book and things you didn't like as much, or you can even unmute yourself to share. I'd like at least 1 to 2 people to share, so who would like to go first?
So one thing I don't like about the book is that I know it's not like a real story or anything like that, but one thing I don't like is how they mention that, like, the main character, the kid, the shepherd, I mean, like, he's a kid, but he still drinks wine, he still, like, swears, even though he's just a kid. Because they mentioned that in the book, but
All right, Jazakallah for your opinion. If there's anybody else who would like to share, you can type in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So one thing I wanted to share regarding this book was that there's one quote that really stood out to me in this entire book, and I'm going to read the quote out. So it's basically, if someone isn't what others want them to be, the others become angry. Everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives, but none about his or her own. And so this quote really stood out to me because it basically talks about how some people are just like so focused on what other people are doing, and they always just want to criticize others, but they never bother to look at themselves. And that's something that I've taken into account for myself, that I always need to make sure that I'm doing something. I'm making sure I'm doing something before I tell others to do it. And this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions this in the Quran, and he says in Surah Baqarah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لها ما كسبت ولكم ما كسبتم ولا تسألون عما كانوا يعملون. And it basically means that they shall receive the reward of what they earned, and you of what you earn, and you will not be asked of what they do. And basically this is also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also like saying the same thing in the Quran, that we're not going to be asked what someone else is doing, so we need to be focused on ourselves and improve ourselves, and then try to help others. And yeah, so that's what I learned from Alchemist.
All right, mashallah, that was a great quote that you shared, and Jazakallah for your input. So there were a few comments about what people liked. So thank you for Fatima. She said, I like how much they talk about fear. It's something very relatable, and the book talks about it well. And then Saba said, I like the character growth in the book. His mind really opened up, and he learned more about himself and the people he interacts with. All right, mashallah, thank you for all of your opinions. If there's anybody else who would like to enter their opinions in the chat box or unmute yourself, you can go ahead. And then we actually have a few presentations later on. So anyone who actually had slides, you can present that later on. All right.
Yeah, you can, I think, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Those who have screens that they want to share, when you raise hand, you can even let us know in the text box and you can share your screens also, inshallah. So, Jazakallah khair.
All right, inshallah. So I'm just gonna go and convey my own thoughts about this book. So personally, I think this book had lessons aimed for people who don't know what to do or where to go. I'd assume it's for people who worry where and what their futures will look like. It is a known fact that the future is very unknown and frightening, especially for kids in their teens, such as myself, but also for even younger kids who want to accomplish big things in their lives. Even now, with everything that is happening in the world, it is sometimes scary to think about what may happen and if the circumstances in this world will become better. But Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best. May Allah make these times easy for all of us and make us people who turn only to Him, not only in times of hardship, but also in times of ease and success, and to thank Him unconditionally because every trial, tribulation, blessing, or success is from Him and only Him. And there's a comfort in this story where as long as you work hard in something, you'll not find just yourself. You'll eventually find your place in life where you belong, even in places you least expect. Our initial plans might not work out, will most likely not end up where we want to be from the start, but there are plenty of other places in the world where we'll be happy. These lessons in this book, like I said before, have a real and direct ties to Islam. We may have a grand plan for our lives and what we want, but it is ultimately important to realize that Allah has already created a plan for each and every one of us, and we are on this earth to carry out His perfect plans. This does, of course, mean that even though our lives are already laid out by Allah, we still must work hard to achieve and succeed where we want to go. The real message to me, life has options, and you have to decide what's right for you. And the fact that the boy opts to find his treasure is just to allow the author to look at every option, because there wouldn't be much of an exploration of choices if the boy never sold a sheep. Even treasure is generic on purpose. Money isn't everyone's goal, and traveling the world isn't everyone's goal either. It's all symbolic, and there's never a judgment that one should continue a journey towards their dreams. All in all, it's a simple book with a simple message, but one that's very reassuring, and gives hope to a lot of people to just keep pushing through. Now to start the actual content of the book and hopefully talk about what we have learned from it, I'm just going to go over a few themes and quotes that particularly stood out to me, and then I'll open the floor for anyone to speak about things about the book that stuck out to you, and we'll go on to presentations after that. So everybody interprets a book a little different, so things that I thought were interesting may not be the same as what you thought were interesting. But inshallah, the purpose of this book club is to hear and discuss the unique perspective and views that each member read this book with. So let's begin. So I wrote down a few valuable lessons, and our first one was, "What is true will always endure." So a quote that particularly stood out to me that reflected what this theme was saying was, "If what one finds is made of pure matter, it will never spoil, and one can always come back. If what you had found was only a moment of light, like the explosion of a star, you would find nothing on your return." So what this means is that truth cannot be veiled by smoke and mirrors. It'll always stand firm. When you're searching for the right decision, it will be the one that withstands the test of time. This again ties back to doing what you think is right, even though the decision may be hard. Next, we have break the monotony. When each day is the same as the next, it's because people fail to recognize the good things that happen in their lives every day that the sun rises. So this is outlining the practice of gratitude. And gratitude means finding the good in each day, being thankful to Allah, because life can easily become stagnant, mundane, and monotonous, but that changes depending on what we choose to see. There's always a silver lining if you look for it. So the next lesson I had was, your success has a ripple effect. So the quote was, "That's what alchemists do. They show that when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. Growth, change, and evolution are weaved into the fabric of reality. Becoming a better version of yourself creates a ripple effect that benefits everything around you, your lifestyle, your family, your friends, your community." The next one I had was, embrace your present. Because I don't live in either my past or my future, I'm interested only in the present. If you can concentrate always on the present, you'll be a happy man. Because there's no point in dwelling in the past and letting it define you, nor getting lost and anxious about the future. But in the present moment, you're in the field of possibility. How you engage with the present moment will direct your life. Your next one was, focus on your own journey. If someone isn't what others want them to be, the others become angry. Everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives, but none about his or her own. Because it's easy to be influenced by others, but you'll be miserable if you end up living someone else's life. There's nothing wrong with taking advice and learning from others, but make sure it aligns with your own desires and passions. And then our next one was keep getting back up. And this might be one of my favorite quotes, and it's the secret of life though is to fall 7 times and to get up 8 times, because the eighth time could be your breakthrough. Some of the greatest novels in history were published after receiving hundreds of rejections. Thankfully, those authors never gave up. And our last one is always take action. There is only one way to learn, is through action. You can study, read, and listen, but the full experience is when you take action and let the rubber meet the road. And a great example of this would be the Wright brothers. They made plans on how to build a plane, but there was no way they would know if it would work right, if they gave up on their dream. If they didn't take action and test their designs and keep getting back up, they would have not made such a big impact on the modern world today. So the moral of the story is take action. All right, now, so please type in the chat or unmute yourself on anything that has really impacted you when it came to this book or some of the themes of the book, because I want to hear everyone's perspectives when it comes to this book. If you want, please type in the chat or unmute yourself. All right, if anyone wants to share, you can just type it or unmute yourself. And after that, we can have some member presentations. All right, if no one has any input on it, we can actually go on to the member presentations. Danya, if you're ready, you can go and share your screen with your presentation.
First, you have to stop. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So from this book, the quote that stood out to me was, "And when you cannot go back, you have to worry only about the best way moving forward." I think this quote can relate to a lot of us, especially during this hard time where all of us are at home and we have many precautions we have to take, and we think that we don't want this kind of place anymore. We want to go back to the same way, but we all understand that if we do, then we can be vulnerable to this virus. And when you don't know what to do, the best way is to go forward and continue in the best way possible that you can. So this was my most favorite takeaway from this book, and I hope this can help you. Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah for your input. We have another presentation. I have to actually pull up the presentation since she was not able to share it herself, but I think Mariam is going to be speaking next. Just give me a second, I'll pull it up.
Hello.
Amira, you can talk if you would like to go ahead first.
All right, this is Mariam's presentation.
Okay.
If you want, you can go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mariam Siddiqui and I'm 11 years old. My favorite color is red and I have 2 pet cocktails named Cuckoo and Sunny, and they're both boys. I have 1 brother and 2 sisters. My favorite book series is called Style of Badminton by Courtney, and my favorite sports are swimming and soccer. Next slide. The valuable lesson I fascinating was that the whole book only mentioned 2 names. It didn't mention any other names. The lesson I learned is that you shouldn't give up and that you should always be willing to learn. I learned a moral that you should be kind to everyone no matter what happened to them or what they look like. And I think we should do that, to be kind to Black people and white people, to everyone, even if they're not Muslims. I think that the author's message was that you should always be brave and that you should learn whenever you get the chance. Action item. What I'll want to implement from the book is I will be kind to everyone no matter who or what they are. What I love from this book is that it has a lot of adventure. My favorite quote, there are a lot of people here and each has his own God, but the only God I serve is Allah, and his name I swear that I will do anything possible once again to win out over the desert.
All right, Jazakallah, Maryam, for your input. If there are any other presentations, just type it in the chat if you are ready to go. All right, I think Zain is supposed to go up next. I'll just pull up his presentation real quick.
I can show my presentation on mine as well.
All right, then you can do it.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my favorite quote was, as I mentioned before as well, if someone isn't what others want them to be, the others become angry. Everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives, but none about his or her own. And basically this quote is basically talking about how sometimes people are focused on other people's, you can say, other people's some qualities that they lack or something they're bad at, and then people just like to criticize others without looking at themselves first and looking at if they have problems within themselves, and rather than fixing them, they're focused on others. So the lesson I took from this was that I need to be focused on myself before I start trying to criticize others or telling someone else to do something. I should be working on my own self first. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran as well, in Surah Baqarah, ayah 141. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لها ما كسبت ولكم ما كسبتم ولا تسألون عما كانوا يعملون. And the translation for this is, they shall receive the reward of what they earned, and you of what you earned, and you will not be asked of what they used to do. And this is also talking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also talking about how we need to not be worried about what others are doing, since we will not be asked of their actions and they will not be asked of our actions. So we need to be working on ourselves, and we need to be checking ourselves before we wreck ourselves. So, Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah for your input. I think Sister Atika has, or actually Hadia has a presentation, and then Sister Atika has something to say after that.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my favorite quote from The Alchemist was, there is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, the fear of failure. And that means like when your fear overcomes you, that you're going to fail at something, you will obviously fail because you're fearing and you're not even going to try. That was mine.
Jazakallah for your opinion. And Sister Atika has something to say, so if you want to unmute yourself, you can do so.
Jazakallah khair, Zaid. I just wanted to comment on the first child who presented, and he said, I'm sorry I didn't get his name. He said that there are certain things that he did not like about the book, and the fact that there were mentions of him drinking and doing things that are un-Islamic or stuff like that. So there's one example that I give whenever whenever people, students in my classroom come up with these questions, as in trying to, and I tell them that there's always a place in your classroom where you have the books, you have the presentation board, you have your textbooks and everything, and you have your desks and whatnot. But there's one spot that you see, and that's where nobody pays attention. And that spot is essential in the classroom, but nobody pays attention to it because it does not deserve our attention, in the sense that it's a place where people put in their trash. So if a person is looking at a certain an element, a book, any part of their lives, and they're trying to focus on what is good, that should be the aim of you approaching anything in life as a Muslim. But if you focus on what is not being, I mean, there's no harm in bringing it up and talking about it. But the fact is, yes, there are certain books that will shock you. And I was talking to you about the halal book list that I have, There are certain books that will shock you, and there are certain character traits that will shock you because unfortunately not everyone's Muslim and not everyone is guided. But I would love to suggest to you that when you see such things, just try to ignore it, because you know that what you get out of this book is a lot more than one tiny trash can in the corner. So whenever you focus, inshallah, focus on the bright side, focus on the good things that are available, focus on the good lessons that you carry from this book. And let alone things like that will dwindle away, things like bad characteristics or stuff that's negative or stuff that's un-Islamic will kind of dwindle away. But your focus has to be something strong, something positive, something that will that you take away that enhances your character, makes you better, inshallah. And with your character being better, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, others will be impacted, inshallah. So barakallahu fikum. And this was an excellent presentation, Zaid. This was really incredible. I enjoyed it, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah, Sister Atika, for everything that you've done for today's meeting. All right, now we can actually start on the Kahoot. We're kind of running out of time, so we'll move through it quickly. So get out your devices, and I'll put up the code shortly. All right, so if you can just put up the code ahead and type in that link, then you can join. Inshallah, we'll be starting in just a few minutes. All right, we're gonna get started in like the next minute. So if you guys could just quickly put in your code, and then we'll be joining or starting shortly. All right, let's get started. All right, inshallah, we can begin now. All right, mashallah, Danya in first place. We'll go into the second question. All right, mashallah, good job. Hadia now taking the lead. All right, Hadia still in the lead. All right. And Mariam Siddiqui with a streak of 3 correct answers. Mashallah, you guys are all doing great. All right, Fatima with the highest answer streak. Almost done, almost halfway. All right, Zayn taking first place. All right, we're halfway there, halfway there. All right, what was the name of the girl the boy met in the oasis? Fatima, Anne, Grace, or Emma? All right. Zane's still in the lead, 20,000 points. Next question, what does maktub mean? It is written, I want it, bless you, go in peace. Besides actual treasure, what did Santiago gain from his journey? Knowledge and wisdom, a horse, a house, a job at the oasis as a counselor. All right. Zane's still in the lead. Who did Santiago promise 10% of the treasure to? The gypsy woman, the alchemist, the crystal merchant, the king. All right. Zane's still in the lead with 24,000 points. What does one of the attackers tell Santiago? That no one likes him, that he had a dream of treasure under the sycamore tree, that Fatima is dead, that he doesn't believe in alchemy. All right. Zane with 19 incorrect answers in a row. What did Santiago's parents want him to be? A priest, a baker, a shepherd, a farmer. A priest. All right. Now, who is the author of The Alchemist? Should be pretty straightforward. Paulo Coelho, Pablo Neruda, Mr. Rogers, and Emily Anthis. All right. Zane still in the lead with 28,000 points. What time period does The Alchemist take place in? Modern day, early 1900s, 800 BC, and late Renaissance. All right, late or early 1900s. All right. Question 24. Which was of the following was a main message in the book? All right, follow your dreams, treat others as you want to be treated. Don't go to Tangier or else you will get robbed, and suffering brings us closer to God. All right, now to bring up the podium. Third place, Hadia. Second place, Farzan. And first place, Zayn. All right, great job, guys. All right, now we're gonna have a few announcements from others, from Sister Javeria and Sister Sheen about the next book, inshallah. So, all right, Ersheen, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum everyone. How are we all doing? Alhamdulillah, hope you guys are all staying safe and indoors and having fun reading this book. It was so nice to hear all of your guys' thoughts and ideas about The Alchemist. It was a really good book, at least in my opinion. And we hope you enjoyed reading it. May Allah increase each and every one of you in your ilm, and be sure to continue to read, inshallah. So before we end today's book club meeting, I wanted to introduce you to the next book that we will be reading for the next 5 weeks or so. It's called The Etiquette of Life in Islam by Muhammad Yusuf Islahi. Muhammad Yusuf Islahi is, mashallah, he's very accomplished. He actually came to Atlanta, I believe, once. And he actually wrote this book in Urdu first around like 1965. And it was later on translated into English by Professor Riaz Hussein and was published in 2008. And this translated version, inshallah, is obviously what we will be reading. Our last book did have lessons that obviously tied into Islam, but this time there's kind of more of a direct focus on Islam, as this book touches on the mannerisms of how to interact with people, how to take care of yourself and others, and so much more. In total, I believe there's about 424 pages-ish, but it's divided into 5 individual sections that touch on kind of different etiquettes of life. We're going to split it up in kind of 5 weeks, the 5 sections, inshallah. And so the first section, I believe, it's called Manners and Etiquettes. So you kind of can read that during the first week. The second week is, you can kind of read the devotion and prayer section. The third section is decent living. The fourth is sense of devotion. And the fifth is call to religion. So I truly think this book is so amazing. It has amazing lessons and teachings, some of which are very basic, every day, but some that we might not know about and that we should definitely pay more attention to. Inshallah, there's more announcements. We have the Wisdom Video Challenge. This is ongoing. I think it's July 15th, yes, at the bottom, July 15th are submissions. There is a form to fill out. Mashallah, the prizes are very nice. And yeah, we have another announcement. The Quran page a day, basically you submit, for the 30th juz, you submit every day about a surah, whether that be a recording, word to word meeting, whatever you want. You earn gems. Of course, there's prizes and stuff like that. Really nice motivation there. Yeah, so this is kind of our new flyer with our next book on it. Again, the same link. Be sure to sign up with this link in the next couple of days. We're going to be sending out all the details along with another PDF version of this book, so you can read it online if that's what you prefer. And also a suggested reading timeline to kind of read it in the next 5 weeks. And our next meeting to kind of discuss this book would be on August 12th. And I look forward to everyone participating and learning even more with this next book that we're going to read. So now we're going to have our concluding dua done by Zaid. So I will turn it over to him.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالقرآن وزين أخلاقنا بالقرآن ونجنا من النار بالقرآن وأدخلنا في الجنة بالقرآن. اللهم اجعل القرآن لنا في الدنيا قرينا وفي القبر مونسا وعلى الصراط نورا وفي الجنة رفيقا ومن النار سترا وحجابا. اللهم آنس وحشتنا في قبورنا. اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن العظيم. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وآناء النهار واجعله لنا حجة يا رب العالمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.